Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. I have with us today, he's a director, and he has a film is streaming right now on Amazon, Tubi, Plex, wherever you can find your movies, and it's called Blue Hour: The Disappearance of Nick Brandreth. I have with us the director, Dan Bowers. Dan, welcome to the Horror Room.
Hey, thanks for having me, Travis.
It's a pleasure to have you on, man. So tell us a little bit about Blue Hour.
It's a faux documentary about sort of, takes that true crime form that we've seen a lot and spins it someplace quite strange. I don't want to give too much away. It is sort of like a mystery thriller. If you're looking for, cosmic horror, it's more in that realm than, say, if you're looking for body count, you'll probably be disappointed.
So what gave you the inspiration to, I'm going to come up with a more of a mystery style horror film?
I think like early in the pandemic, I was watching a lot of true crime, and I started to feel really bad for the families that kind of relitigate their trauma. So I started kind of puttering around with just ideas about like time travel in a documentary. I mean, I'm towing the line of spoilers for the film, but that's kind of where it started. And then Nick Brandreth, the actual human being, kind of sent me this idea he had for a story. And I kind of looked at it. It was like a one-page run-on sentence that made no sense. And I was just like, yeah, well, this isn't going to work. Let's frame it as a documentary. And we kind of just went from there.
Now, how long production-wise, from that point to production-wise, did it take?
The whole thing was probably about 2.5 years, and it being, faux documentary, it was not like a linear, we were in production for a year, then we were in post for a year or something. We were kind of like, we'd shoot sequences, we'd cut sequences, we'd realize we kind of were missing a thing here, we'd go do that. We were making all of our B-roll, scanning family movies to get like Super 8mm footage. It was a very twisty-turny production, but, between myself, I'm a visual effects supervisor by trade, and our cinematographer is a commercial editor. We had a bit of an advantage where our post schedule could be very flexible since, we weren't working with like a colorist that we had to like deliver everything to for a certain session, or, our audio guy, Evan, he was just fantastic to like collaborate the whole time.
Nice. Now, was it easier? I mean, as a filmmaker making a mockumentary, was it a little bit easier to film? Because, most mockumentaries, you have that choppy look to it.
It presents different issues. You're constantly trying to create authenticity, both in terms of world and in terms of like what a documentary would do. So you're always just sort of juggling. I found that to be pretty exhausting. I think a more traditional film has its own set of problems, continuity being chief among them. So yeah, we didn't have to really worry about continuity too much, but we did have plenty of other things that were nightmares.
Yeah. So after doing, your first mockumentary, is this something that you would do again? Or is it something you're like, fuck no, I did it once, I'm good with it?
This is actually the second kind of long form mock doc that I've done. The first one was for my friend who runs a tattoo shop in Brooklyn. We did a parody of Miami Ink called Ink Inc., which was nice. We just like shut the shop down for a week, used the tattoo artist, kind of wrote sketches and did like a comedy style. That was more mock doc. This is more like if you kind of dig other like more serious faux documentaries, that's kind of where we are on the scale. Like Mungo is a good reference point if you're into that kind of breed of stuff that just sort of gets under your skin more than it really scares you. We're kind of looking to just instill doom for a longer period of time.
Now, you've been doing horror for a long time. Who are some horror filmmakers that you got inspiration from, or even films?
I think like in terms of filmmakers, I think seeing Psycho was pretty eye-opening for me. I think I was maybe 14 and we had like a film introduction kind of class in high school, which was pretty unique in hindsight. and I hadn't really seen anything like that before. I know that the first horror movie I ever saw, I was like 5 and I saw Alien, which was probably too young in hindsight.
Yeah.
Definitely too young. I can remember seeing like early Friday the 13th movies when I was, like at friends' sleepovers and stuff. But I think Psycho and just Alfred Hitchcock in general, not really known as a horror filmmaker, but I think the level of excitement of his films is something that's stuck. And then, I'm a big John Carpenter fan. I think everyone has to be. I really dig Jordan Peele's movies. I think that, and he's always given respect back to John Carpenter. So you can kind of like see your favorite filmmakers is really the way you got to sort of track it back.
So it's crazy that you said that, you saw, Psycho introduction of films. I remember in 5th grade, we watched The Birds. That was like the introduction of films. And like looking back at it, I mean, Alfred Hitchcock has had, his footprint on horror since the beginning.
Oh, definitely. And like The Birds is, no disrespect to The Birds, it's kind of a lesser Hitchcock. But even in a lesser Hitchcock, you feel a level of love and care that you don't from so many filmmakers. I think Alfred Hitchcock had a brain for just weaving you along, and that became the foundation that so many people built on. Because his contemporaries sort of just did like, oh, there's a scary castle and it ends up being haunted, or there's a creepy dude doing experiments in the basement. And as much as you can credit John Carpenter for bringing horror into the suburbs or into your living room, Hitchcock brought it a lot further away from like a mystical place in, I don't know, like Europe somewhere to like a shitty motel. I think that's that's a powerful transition, and he really deserves a lot of credit for willing. You see the credit. Like, I'm not saying Hitchcock is being slept on. Like, his characters are the same character names you get in Halloween, you get in Scream. Like, his imprint is all over this shit, and it's deserved.
I mean, Norman Bates. Psycho. Was he not the first slasher? Was he not the OG slasher?
I think you can make an argument for it. There's definitely other stuff. There's enough knife play and kind of brutal violence and like early film noirs. I'm like sorry to nerd out. I'm kind of like did a lot of film theory in college. So I love talking film history. I think it's important if you want to make films today to know what's been done. Not to necessarily say that you can't do something that's been done, but just know your context.
Yeah.
Norman Bates, maybe. And those subsequent Psycho films get slept on for sure. Hitch wasn't involved in any of them. But there's some great fucking, like, Psycho 2 is a good movie. And I feel like it's really getting flowers now, but underrated.
Psycho 2 is great. And like, talking about the history of horror, the statement has always been made that sequels are always bad. But there are some old sequels to horror movies, and like the one that pops in my head is Psycho 2, as well as The Exorcist 3. The Exorcist 3, I thought was great.
I love it. It's funny because I just think The Exorcist is such a perfect. I think of perfect films, and the list is essentially Jaws, The Exorcist. I think that's it. I think these are the only 2 films that I look at. I'm like, there's nothing to change. Mm-hmm. I have one kind of like nibbling qualm with Jaws, just to overshare. I think that no kid in the hospital is going to say they want coffee flavored ice cream.
None.
Kids aren't going to say that. Aside from that, it's a perfect film. And The Exorcist, and Exorcist 3 does have like the best jump scare ever. Everyone knows the thing I'm thinking of. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But The Exorcist is just beautiful. It's an objectively beautiful, haunting movie. It does so many things perfect.
Now, by being a horror film connoisseur, how do you feel about right now in Hollywood? It's when it comes to iconic horror films, it's reboot after reboot after reboot after reboot, and some of the reboots are giving some of these iconic horror films a fresh coat of paint. But a lot of them are either just taking the same story and just retelling it, or they're just doing a horrible job and completely fucking up the original.
You're talking about Believer?
Yes.
It's the corporatization of creativity. And it's a shame that the filmmakers get the stigma of it. And I'm not saying that as a filmmaker. I'm saying that is because these movies are not necessarily coming from somebody deciding, oh, I really want to reboot The Exorcist. I don't know if that was what went down there. Maybe it is. But right now, it is really, really fucking hard to get an original idea to just come across the finish line. It's just people aren't interested. Studios are not greenlighting things. Like, we are about to, and I think the consumer needs to be aware that, like, we are about to sail off into like brand new world territory. Like, we don't know what's happening. It is impossible to get an original idea across an executive's desk. And I hate to blame anyone, but I'm looking directly at like corporate filmmaking. You have way too many business interests that just care about profit, and they don't know what to make sense of. And they just keep going to what is safe, proven, etc. It's bullshit. And I don't blame the filmmaker. I think that the creativity is just bereft in Hollywood right now, especially on the development side.
But do you think that's because of the corporate, or do you think that's because when it comes to hardcore horror fans, we're such a small, believe it or not, we're such a small percentage of people who go to the theaters and pay to see horror films. We're a small percentage. Majority of the individuals who go and see a horror movie in the movie theaters are the casual horror fans. So the casual horror fans, they love seeing Halloween 27. They love seeing Terrifier 6. So do you think part of it is a blame because hardcore horror fans are not speaking out and they're not the ones who are spending the money?
I don't think it's fair to blame the fans for what gets made. I think if you look at the IMDb score of like Exorcist Believer, and I'm sorry to keep shitting on it, like the Gordon Greens, I even enjoyed the last of the Halloween films. I thought it was a great nod to Halloween 3. It was just weird, and I don't know, I've revisited it. I didn't enjoy it when I first saw it. Not to make this like the David Gordon Green fucked up podcast, but like, I rewatched it later. I watched it later and I was kind of like, I was all right with it. If anything, I have a problem with Halloween Kills more than Halloween Ends. I thought Halloween Kills was kind of nonsense and just splatters for splatter's sake. But I do think that, it's hard to blame the audience for what they're given, what they spend their money on, what's marketed to them. It's hard to get people to believe in a new idea. And if you look at horror creators, there's an awful lot of great people doing things that are at very small budgets, really fucking well. I mean, Panic Fest last year, I feel like I saw many of my favorite films of the year, all wrapped up in one festival with directors I'd never heard of. So I don't know if that's really an answer to your question, but I'm not going to blame anyone except for the people profiteering off what they're profiteering on, when you consolidate the industry into smaller and smaller number of companies that have been merged, you've reduced the amount of competition. Therefore, the demand is different and you don't have to stand out. That's why people are excited that what's his face, James Wan and Blumhouse have merged. I'm concerned. That to me speaks to a larger problem in the industry. That means you've got 50% less people total thinking about the projects or the work, because you've just taken two companies, you've gotten rid of half and half probably, and you have a new corporation that will probably just give you a couple crossover films and other thoughtless bullshit like we did in the late 90s when horror started to die last. And Bob's your uncle. Here we go again.
And I'm not bad mouthing the horror community, but if you look on social media, if you look in the news, people are screaming. And once again, I don't know if they're horror core, but I feel like most of them are casual horror fans. They're screaming for remake. I want to see another this. I want to see another that. They are screaming for sequels.
Not really a new trend, though, in horror. I mean, it goes back beyond the 50s. You've got the Atomic Monster, Atomic Spider, all those kind of things. You have the slasher boom where you have 8 Freddy Krueger films. I think the serialization of content, that's what exists right now. People want and studios want IPs. Studios then push IPs. And it's a bummer, but there are alternatives out there. And I think in no genre do you have more alternatives than in horror. Just the number of people that are making like objectively great shit that gets like medium to low visibility. I don't know, man. I don't know. Did you see Herd?
Yeah. Great.
And new spin on the zombie. It's cool. It's dope. I think like you have active brains in the horror community. So I guess what I would just say is if like a horror fan is feeling like there isn't enough good stuff to watch, I kind of question how much of a fan they really are, because it's out there. And it's out there like there isn't in so many other genres. Really hard to make like a independent superhero film or like a really good independent sci-fi film. I mean, they happen as well, but you can find horror at like every price point.
I agree. And I watch a lot of indie horror. I mean, part of it is because I have a YouTube channel where I interview indie horror filmmakers, but also I've always been an indie horror fan. Like, I grew up on the Full Moon and the Trauma and the low budget horror films, which I hold dear to my heart. And it's sad that those movies, I mean, thank God there's production companies like A24 who are shining a little more of a spotlight on some of indie horrors, and they're getting theatrical releases. But there are so many great horror movies, I mean, out there that the majority of people don't fucking know about.
We're entering a weird time, man. You know, I was on the set of like a $10 million film yesterday. I work as a visual effects supervisor, so I am very fortunate in that my directing side can learn from other people's mistakes while I'm making like a livable, sometimes, salary. And I wonder what the future of filmmaking is going to look like, because I think, you know, it was a $10 million shoot or project, and like I think that's way too big to be sustainable. It's sort of in between, right? Like you can have like a Dune that can make money. And if your film can be made for like under $1 million, I see how that can make money. But we'll see what the future holds. I think it's going to be either exciting or just incredibly depressing. I don't think there's much middle ground.
Yeah. Now, do you think that the box office, the theaters, movie theaters, do you think that is the way of the old now? Do you think streaming is the way that most people are going?
Oh, I mean, that's not even an opinion question. I think, of course, streaming is the future and box office is the past. Now, does that mean that one can't exist or one doesn't have merit? Certainly not. I think that everything needs to be looked at new, and who wins and at what profit, like what the profit margins are and stuff, that needs to be reevaluated, because what's currently happening is not sustainable. So I would say that, yes, streaming is the future, whether that's good or ill. Studios decided to reduce their films to just passable content, give away entire series for free, and to reduce the amount of like conversation about the projects. We prioritized faster over any sort of like future viability, and now we're paying the consequences.
Because so many people are saying that, streaming services is a fad. This is something that people like physical media. They like DVDs. They like the experience of going in there. This is something that's going to pass. And I don't know about that, because
that's silly.
Because I'm a person who loves going. I love the theater experience. I love going and sitting there. It's just something that is sitting at home. I don't care how big your fucking TV is. I don't care how much surround sound. It's something that it's a different experience. It's a completely different experience. And I mean, I hope that's not the fucking case, because I do like streaming services, but I prefer the theater. I mean, it's something I grew up on, and seeing, growing up in the video store era and seeing how physical media, Best Buy is no longer having DVDs anymore. It's kind of fucking sad.
It is, and I'm not trying to say like I've tried to separate myself, my preferences from the reality, because I'm with you, man. I love going to the cinema. I have a small collection of Blu-rays, and when I say small, I'm talking like 30, 40 movies that I just will not watch, because I don't want to watch anything with commercials, least of all Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
But like it's a little silly to think this is a fad that's going to pass, because you can look to other industries that this evolution happened faster. And it's not like people are now buying CDs in mass again. Like, I understand there's like more vinyl being produced today than there ever was previous. Now, I don't know what that really means, but I do think that once that genie's out of the bottle and you give something away for free, the general population is going to continue to expect it for free.
Exactly. Because I mean, I saw it way before COVID. I was on social media, and a movie would come out, and people would, well, I'll just wait till it comes on Netflix, or I'll just wait for it to come on Redbox or something. Like people just stopped going to theaters. I would say maybe 10 to 15 years ago. It's been something that's gradually been happening. And unfortunately, the big name studios don't realize it's fucking happening. Or maybe they do, but I don't know. But I don't think they realize, or they're like concerned that it's happening.
I mean, they're concerned about their bottom line. That's why we're seeing just record layoffs. You know, like Kung Fu Panda 4 comes out like 2 weeks ago, is number one at the box office. You flash forward a week later, and half of DreamWorks Animation is laid off. That's fucked up. And that's going to continue to happen, because at this point you have all of these studios are beholden to shareholders on Wall Street. And there's no one advocating for the creativity, for the future viability of these businesses. They need to lower costs now to improve stock situations, or otherwise make mergers seem viable so they can unload things they don't understand that they have. It's very depressing, but that's what's going on.
It is. But at the end of the day, though, it's giving indie filmmakers. I think right now, indie filmmakers are stepping up, and they are getting the spotlight shine on them, which is I'm 100% okay with.
Yeah, me too. And like, I don't have any real delusions about like where my films need to be. You know, it's always a nice pat on the back or ego thing to see your movie in a cinema, and I do think at times it's the way to watch a movie. Blue Hour was designed to be watched on the couch. We watch true crime on the couch, so this movie is quite different. That said, I think for a lot of us, not having to worry about theatrical and having a venue that you can make your money back, and that's cool for one. Two, I think it's really exciting that you can make a good, like, look at, there's names in the industry that make $30,000 to $40,000 films, like the Mark Duplass's of the world. There aren't many of them. Mm-hmm. He's making really, really cheap movies that are good and interesting. And at the end of the day, like, am I sad about the death of like a $30 million comedy, like a Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, Step Brothers 2 or something? Totally. I like that kind of movie too. But I'm just as excited to see what like a lot of other weirdos can make.
Yeah.
It's just become impossible for those weirdos to make these things as a full-time job. Just the idea of like being like a filmmaker who just makes movies, that you're just like a writer-director and you're sustaining your income solely on making a film, that's very tough. You need those sort of Christopher Nolan paydays to make that work.
I agree. All right. Daniel, you know this is a horror channel, so I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions.
Sorry? Is this like a quiz or opinions?
Not just opinions.
Okay, good.
Okay. Growing up, what was the first horror movie that literally scared the shit out of you?
Alien. Next question.
Second question. Okay. What bad horror movie from back in the day do you wish, or would you like to be able to reboot that movie?
Oh, that's a good question. I hate to call it bad. I mean, I love Roger Corman. There is definitely something kind of troubling in terms of just like gender with Humanoids from the Deep. So maybe some sort of modern spin on that could be quite interesting. I mean, that's a very bizarre movie, and I love it. And you know, Vic Morrow, rest in peace. You know, it's just such a good. That would probably be it. I don't know. Are you familiar with Humanoids of the Deep from the Deep?
Yes, I am. And that's a good one. and I shouldn't say bad, but a movie that didn't get as much attention or most people don't know about.
Oh,
And yeah,
that's tough. I mean, I don't know if I know about those movies if they're that shit. I don't have a good answer. I would just say that I think I could do something interesting with Salmon People. So I'll also stick with Humanoids from the Deep with the caveat that I admit that it's not a bad movie. I've seen it probably 50 times.
My answer's always been The Prowler. Like The Prowler, most people have never seen that movie, and most people don't know about The Prowler. And I mean, it was a low budget horror movie, but like I would love to see somebody put a modern day coat of paint on that and see what happens.
Is that the early Carpenter movie?
No, it wasn't John Carpenter. It was the one that was filmed in New Jersey, and it was a soldier.
The Prowler. I'm not Googling it right now. Of course, Marvel Comics comes up. I'm sure this is terribly interesting for people. Interesting. I am not familiar with The Prowler, so I will check this out.
Yes, it's a great horror slasher.
Tight.
Final question. All right, I'm gonna pause that out there. What do you think? What do you think they're going to do with this Exorcist trilogy? I mean, they just got David Gordon Green stepped down. He's not going to be. Originally, he was supposed to do all three films. What do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to completely scrap it, or do you think? I mean,
I don't know. It's honestly those kind of films are pretty low on my like interest level. As much as I love The Exorcist, when I saw the sequel or the reboot was coming out, my first reaction was like, "Is nothing sacred?" Which is a fun pun on just The Exorcist, but I don't know. I haven't given it any thought. Well, I hope they make something and employ some people because folks could use it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm the same way. Like when I saw that come out, I was like, "Why?" I mean, was anybody asking for that? Because I know I wasn't asking for that. And also too, by them, I think they shot themselves in the foot by saying this is going to be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't
know. I don't think The Exorcist has the same legs to just chase down different stories. Like when I heard there was like a whole bunch of new Evil Dead films coming out, that makes sense to me. The Evil Dead is something that you can apply to so many. Like that would just be great. I am on board for that. And to revisit your question about remakes or reboots, the one film that is like I don't think it's a bad movie at all. In fact, I've watched it at least twice this year. Phantasm. I would love to do anything in the Phantasm universe. That's a movie that I'm not as fond of the sequels, but I think the original Phantasm is just like one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. It sounds awesome. Really? It's like very operatic and it's tight. Give me all the Phantasm.
Aren't you shocked that no one has was like, let me reboot that? Well, even like Sleepaway Camp. Sleepaway Camp is another one.
Oh my God, Sleepaway Camp is insane.
Yeah, that's another one that I was thinking to myself, like, how come no one has thought to reboot that, or like, do people not want to touch it because in today's society that would be a controversial topic? Like,
it was controversial then.
Yeah, so I mean, like, what I would have thought somebody would have jumped on Sleepaway Camp by now, 100%.
I mean, there were a few other Sleepaway Camp like sequels and stuff, and like. It is an insanely problematic film. I mean, not just the ending. There's like camp counselors that are like doing some pretty dodgy shit. Like it is not okay what goes on in Sleepaway Camp. Mm-hmm. And like there are some just bizarre scenes, like the stuff that's in like it's like a black box theater, just like a staircase and a door. Like it's just bizarre. I mean, I'm not super high on Sleepaway Camp personally. Like it's kind of rough. As like a white dude, I just feel kind of like uneasy about certain gender things. Like I just keep me away from it. I don't need to put my fingerprints anywhere near Sleepaway Camp. Like there's just kind of a red flag. But, I just think like Phantasm, that world could be so blow into so many different aspects of it and just do so much cool shit. The Tall Man is awesome.
Tall Man's amazing.
I love the Tall Man. That would be super cool, you know. And I think that was one that could like work really well as animation. That could be like a real fun way to do something different with Phantasm, and like getting into the how he came to be. Like go to some different places. Maybe like the reason Detroit is the way Detroit is you know the Tall Man had been there and kind of like took everyone and made his army.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? David Gordon Green might be directing those next.
I know he's just coming for everything I love, man. Next thing I know, he's going to be making Blue Hour 2, and it's going to be like, all right, you're desperate now, dude.
This is not a David Gordon Green bash, by the way. I love Halloween 2018. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great movie. I really did.
All of his TV shows have been great. I mean, I love Righteous Gemstones. I mean, I think Vice Principals is incredible. Like that has great horror stuff going on. It's really good. He's for whatever reason, you know, he does Halloween. He ends up getting sucked into this machine of, you know, these reboots and etc. You know, not every filmmaker does that. Jordan Peele hasn't done that, and like,
no,
fucking Christ, I love Nope. I thought Nope was like one of the best sci-fi movies I'd seen in years. And it was awesome.
But he even said that the 2018 was supposed to be a one-off, and of course it did so well in the box office, and they offered him more money. So I mean, you can't. I mean, you can turn down money, but I mean, who turns down money?
I don't know. I mean, it's an industry where you're just constantly scared that you're never going to be able to do your job again, or you're going to, or still have to like start tying a tie and tapping into reality. So I get it. It'd be cool. He should do more original shit.
I agree. All right, Daniel, where can everyone find you, my friend?
I'm living in Queens, New York City, so good luck. There's a lot of people here. You know, just check out Blue Hour. We've got our new film, The Drumlins, which is shooting this fall. Nice. And then we've got a few other projects in development, both in the studio and well outside of it. You know, it's an easy thing to like get sucked into, but our priority is just making thoughtful, weird, kind of surreally cosmic horror stuff. So if that's your bag, we're going to keep coming. You know, we were lucky. We got to partner with the HP Lovecraft Festival last year, and our film toured with Suitable Flesh. And I think we're starting to show people like, hey, we can do cosmic horror and come along for the ride. We're going to make some weird shit.
Nice. Listen, I'm excited to see it all. Listen, everybody, go over to Amazon, Tubi, Plex, and check out Blue Hour. And also look out for all of Daniel's future work, as well as a reboot of Phantasm.
Got it. I'll be in there with you.
Yep.
Let's go watch it.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.